Thank you very much. As I was introduced that way, I'm just going to use the dreaded slideshow PowerPoint. There's loads of transitions. I'm going to fly through it as quickly as I can to tell a story, which on the face of it looks reasonably simple, but actually is quite complicated. There's some nuances in there which that deserve to be explained. So if you forgive me, I'll tell the story like this. The problem that I wanted to handle is a problem that results in one death every 24 seconds around the world. It is actually twice as virulent a killer as malaria. It also results in 23 million cases of hepatitis around the world, hundreds of thousands of HIV infections, and it is this humble scene here of an injection. The delivery of medical services in the developing world especially is the problem that I was trying to solve. This humble scene that you see here with an older patient being injected by a quack, an unqualified doctor, is the actual problem in its simplicity. Because these syringes are used over and over again between patients and transmit viruses from one to the other. And for me, the driving force behind the 27-year journey that I've been on has been very much about the inequity of the unfairness of a patient going for healthcare treatment, a mother taking her child for healthcare treatment, and unknowingly walking away in a worse state. In India, 62% of injections that are given are unsafe, which was a WHO figure out of a WHO study. And as a real-life example, these three kids, who are totally charming, as you can see, that I met in an orphanage in Delhi, were the unfortunate recipients of HIV through medical treatment, through the reuse of a syringe. And what was even sadder, I suppose, was that as soon as the diagnosis was delivered to the parents actually threw these children out of the house because they had no way socially of living with the stigma of HIV in their community, in one of their children, where it was their fault because of lack of vigilance that these children became infected. And sadly, 2 of these kids are no longer with us. In Africa, 70% of all injections report in a fever condition afterwards. This isn't the reaction to the medicine. This isn't anything to do with getting better. This is actually because of pathogens on the needle or in the syringe, which the patient is suffering from afterwards. 20 million injections are reckoned to be given every year with blood on the needle, which is HIV infected already. And in Pakistan, and I was talking to someone from Pakistan earlier, 70% of the injections are unsafe, and even worse, 90% are unnecessary. I think it's around 14 injections per person are delivered in Pakistan, and 90% of those are completely unnecessary, and they're given as a placebo help. Doctor, please give me an injection. I don't want a pill, because an injection is seen to be, in white man's terms, much more efficient and much more thorough. The end result, which is, I find amazingly shocking every time I put this slide up, is that the world suffers to the tune economically of about $119 billion every single year because of this problem. And the syringe industry, on a retail basis, is only worth $4 billion around the world, and yet it results in nearly $120 billion worth of damage. And 1/3 of that is healthcare costs, follow-on treatments and diagnosis, and 2/3 of that is lost production. There are 3 areas that make up this problem. First of all, there's reuse, and here you can see me in Islamabad, actually, with a lady who was burnt with an acid burning on her face. Being treated 10 years ago in this very room, she was actually infected with hepatitis B through the equipment that was used on her, primarily the syringes. And ironically, as I mentioned, we're in the same room where she was actually infected, being treated for another follow-on condition, which is hepatitis B. This is a scene that I see regularly, a glass syringe which literally should have been thrown out with the ark, and floating in lukewarm water with some needles which the patient is asked to take their pick. In some way, I seem to understand that it's the doctor is absolving himself, oh, you picked the wrong needle, if something goes wrong. And this was an example of that, where this doctor, I was taking some photographs late in the afternoon in a slum in Delhi, and I said, oh, you're a very handsome man, you must have had many patients today. Yes, I've had about 25, I won't do the accent. I've had about 25, and I said, well, where's the syringe that you used all day, using the singular? And he held up this syringe for me to see. So I took his photograph and then hit him and ran as fast as I possibly could. They're used like pens and scissors. They're kept on the desk, literally to be used patient after patient after patient. And this could be the world record holder, because you can see here that the ink has worn off the barrel, and that must mean that it's been used over 100 times. And just to wrap up the reuse section, I'm going to show you a very short clip of undercover video that we were sent, which explains this in graphic detail.
These nurses were filmed secretly in a government hospital for 30 minutes. The tray they are using has medicine on it for all the patients on the floor, yet they only have 2 syringes. During this time, not once was a new syringe taken from a packet. The nurses openly throw the syringes back in the tray, then pick them up again to give the next injection, and not one patient or bystander ever challenges them.
The next area is recycling, and you can see here that the syringes have a value. They're even weighed when they're resold, because they have a per unit or a per weight value. And just to go one step further, this is at the back of a hospital in Asia, where they've actually created a specially made bath where they wash the syringes at the end of every day. This is a day's use in a hospital. They're washed and cleaned on the next day, and then taken back upstairs when they're dry and reassembled for use again. And when you look down on the scene, you can see the scale of how many of these products are going through the system, and repeatedly going around the system, and they're blood stained and they infect all the other products. So it is just a downward spiral of massive proportion. And there is a rag picker industry as well, obviously associated with this. This is a little girl in Islamabad. It says health centre in Urdu at the far end there. And early in the morning, she's visited. She's got her little bag of, not just syringes, but there's catheters and blood bags, et cetera, which are all recycled. These are her brothers. This is the yard they work in. They tip out their swag. And these are 9-year-old hands that are holding these syringes. And while they're sorting them out and handling them, they prick each other with the needles which are exposed. And of course, you can imagine the issues that come out of this as a byproduct of recycling. But it's on a scale. These are just syringe barrels and plungers which are put in these bags and taken off to recycling centres. And the third area is misuse. So it's a really funny thing that people use syringes for. This one I came across in Indonesia. You can see this boy holding a bag of these syringes on a toy stool in a school, and they're next to the diggers and tractors, exactly where you would expect your syringes to be. And what they do is they use them for a really great game of water pistols, and they are laughing and joking, and you feel such a turd coming on saying, don't do that, that's not safe. But actually it isn't safe, because it's really hot. They drink from these syringes, and you can see here that they're blood stained, they've got rubbish in the barrel. They have been reused, and these kids are just drinking from them. We track this story back to the toy wholesaler, and here you can see in these bins, these are crackers, these are toy pistols, there are tractors, I think somewhere, toy aeroplanes. And these 2 baskets contain syringes. Now, ironically, they're sold for twice the price that they would get them if they went and bought them sterile from a pharmacy, because they're a toy. And the other thing which was of note was that the woman who ran this toy store used her children to wash these syringes and dry them in the sun before they were repackaged afterwards. She was literally brought a bag every single day of product to wash out and sell, which she bought. The problem, those 3 areas all combined to make the big problem, and the big problem are normal syringes. Normal syringes are incredibly cheap. They're made in mass. There's about 50 billion syringes made every single year around the world. And they are very, very cheap, and they don't have any safety mechanisms molded into them. So I had taken on this challenge in 1984 after reading a newspaper article about this subject. I was 23 years of age. I'm 51 now. And I decided that this was going to be my vocation. So after 3 years of studying the problem, and that was really a formative period for me, understanding the problem in as much detail as I could, I realized that the solution had to be made on existing equipment. There were 500-600 syringe factories in the world. There was no way the industry would change by me coming along and saying, I'm 24 years old, 26 years old, I know better than you, throw away your factory and build a new one to make this product. It wasn't going to work. What I had to do was find a way of retrofitting the existing scene with a better product. I also, if possible, could build in no extra cost, no extra features, no special materials or plastics, because that way we could keep the supply and the cost of these products the same all the way through, and thirdly, used in the same way. The solution is a product that I invented called K1, and it looks like this, and this is just a CAD drawing of it. But it looks like a normal syringe, but there's this valve molded in just beneath the rubber stopper, and after use it breaks. And let me just show you what that looks like. So this is one of my syringes, and it works in exactly the same way that everyone else's does. You inject and then you throw it away. And if someone inadvertently or deliberately tries to reuse it, it locks and breaks inside and renders it completely useless. Thank you. A bottle of Coke in the world, and I've been to 65 developing world countries, is around 50 cents wherever you go, 30 to 40 to 50 to 60 cents. And they're not there for the tourists, they're there for the indigenous population, and Coca-Cola is unbelievably successful. One of our syringes is 5 cents. So literally you can buy 10 products for the price of a soft drink, which means that we've met the goal also of making them for no increase in cost, because that's the normal price of a syringe. And just to take you back in time, I started in 1984, and I took this photograph in 2001, and this was the first time I'd ever sold and seen one of my syringes being used for real. So it took me 17.5 years to get to this point. Since then, we've sold 3.5 billion syringes, and that product has been credited with saving over 10 million lives, of which we're very proud. Thank you. This hospital, Temeke, I just wanted to give as an example of what does happen when we supply. The average inpatient stay over a 5-year period, the only change they made was just to use auto-disable syringes. They were mine, but there are many other designs, was that the inpatient length of stay dropped from 7 days to 3 just by using one sterile procedure in that delivery chain. You can imagine those 4 extra days of production, those 4 less days of costs. If that was maximized out across the developing world, we would have a completely different health system. The nurses started washing their hands. They felt that they were now part of a system, and that they would explain to the patients what they were doing, what this new syringe was, etc., etc. And 20 auto-disable syringes, which costs $1, saves over $200 of downstream costs, and that allows us to eat into that $119 billion cost. More auto-disable syringes obviously equals less syringes. But is that the end of the story? No. The problem that I've identified obviously relies on information, and I'm going to shoot through a couple of things just to sort of finish off the story. These 3 logos are WHO created logos, but they don't show them to anyone. So I took their logos, which are open sourced, out of a packet, used once and safely disposed of, and turned them into a campaign. We tried it in India, first of all, where the Minister of Health refused to see me. 62% of injections are unsafe, 1.5 billion syringes to deliver 5 billion injections, 30 to 40 times some of them are used, and there are 26 states, 19 languages, quite a challenge. So we decided, we were given $1.2 million by a private donor, and we decided to do a 5-day program. We thought, you know, posters on the wall and we could spread that $1.2 million out over a few years was the wrong way to do it. 5-day campaign, massive media exposure, claimed to be a guru. Shaving had gone through a transformational issue as well when it was blamed as one of the transmitters for HIV, and the barbers all changed over to a disposable system. The price went from 3 rupees to 10 rupees in India, and yet everyone felt that they were buying their insurance for not having that exposure. The president of India at the time, Abdul Kalam, jumped on board. You can tell he's the president because I have my hair cut. And I did lots of research around India. I went 11 times in 1 year to make sure that the message was right. We actually achieved in that 5-day period 720 million exposures throughout the country of the message. And in the end, the Minister of Health did choose to see me because of articles like this. Ramados's name is not time for safe syringe expert. We really rammed home the fact that he wasn't doing his job. And I was able to get him to put in a mandate in India, which is now complied with in 11 of those 26 states, and we're working to get more of those changed over. My campaign is called LifeSaver, and it encompasses those simple 3 designs. And I've been to Tanzania to meet this amazing lady, the Minister of Health, who has agreed to put, you can't see it, they're on these samples, LifeSaver is printed on every syringe now, so there's public recognition. The public can look through seeing a campaign like this. This is normal injection, makes you look like a rotten tomato. LifeSaver injection makes you look like a healthy one. Here's the LifeSaver logo. And that now they get recognition and they look for that every time they go for an injection. So how can we make this bigger? How can we actually take this from maybe a 6% market global penetration to a 60% market penetration and cause a tipping point so that no more unsafe injections are ever given? Well, I think it's very much in thinking differently, and what I'm working on now, which I would love to tell you about in the future, is a way of opening it up and making sure that every manufacturer in the world can make these products without any form of disincentive by having to invest in the patents, invest in the technology. And we're working on lots of really exciting systems which are going to come to fruition in the next couple of years. And hopefully you'll keep track of me and find out what's going on. And if you would like to write, there's my number.